Hi, I'm Kelly Dafor, and I live in Houston, Texas. So I'm here with a whole bunch of other people. I live in the suburbs right now. I have a house in the city, and so I've decided that I turned 60 in October, and so I'd like to retire from my big corporate, day job where I work for an oil and gas firm, and I work downtown. I drive downtown 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And so my plan is to retire in a couple years, and I would like to get my farm started. And so I have just kind of started from where I am in my backyard. The swimming pool actually takes up three-fourths of the backyard. So now the rest of it, I have, kind of hodgepodge together a greenhouse and some, you know, and I've got buckets, hydroponic buckets with covers on them, what have you. But so my ideal plan or I think my ideal plan is at this point is to grow my own food. I have my reasons to want to do that, but I think I probably passed my 30 seconds. That's what's happened.
You're all good.
I
It's all
started
good.
into it. Okay.
Yeah, no, it gives people a sense of where you want to go. So coming out of oil and gas,
Yes,
working in downtown, you're more on the office side of things than in the field. What
definitely.
is it about farming for somebody coming from the corporate side? You're 60, you're not 20.
Right.
Why now in life from
Yep.
where you're at? What's the draw?
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I would say like my whole life, I've spent as much time outside as I can, for one thing. And then, so this is a kind of an off rabbit hole, but my mom has macular degeneration. So she's actually blind right now. She's 82. She's in assisted living. It's not a good thing that's happened. And so I went to the doctor 2 years ago myself to get my eyes tested, and I had like stage one, and he said you need to get on a Mediterranean diet. And so like I did it like all in, if overnighted the books from Amazon. I now and I mean, I didn't just add fish to my diet. We did the whole thing. Right. My teenage son's like, Mom, we have no food in the pantry. And so this is what started it. And so this is kind of sciencey, but they're like drusins that get in your eyes from the diet that you eat, from the processed food that we have here in the United States, right? You don't want me to go down that uh, rampage as well. But so I had seven drusen, like three in one eye and four in the other. And in 6 months of being not eating one single thing that was not 100% clean, I went back 6 months later and I had one drusen in one eye. And like he was, the doctor said, you're going to have to come every 6 months and eventually you'll have to come longer. My mother gets injections in her eyeball for this, like every 6 weeks to try and keep her vision.
Mm.
So this is kind of where I noticed it, right? And it started. And then I thought, my gosh, if this is doing it to my eyeballs, what's it doing to my other organs that I don't even know, that I'm not even having symptoms, or my children, or, whatever it is in my family that's makes us have the propensity to have this blindness. And so, well, part of my why is I don't want to do that to myself. I would like to live a long time and I would like to be able to see what I'm doing. And so, and then I also would like to share this food with my kids. And I don't, these labels in the grocery store and the things you're getting. I mean, I go to the farmers markets and I do those things. And so, I could do that, but I'd rather just know for sure that it's clean and it's good. And I'm going to be able to share it with my family. And so that's kind of where it started. So once I
Well, let me
started,
let me hold you there
yeah,
because okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
very mission driven.
yeah.
What when you have that? I mean, I don't know. My only experience with the oil and gas industry is watching Landman on Paramount. So
Okay.
I assume there's decent money, and I was just in Houston. And some people start farming as a career. If you think about your getting out of oil and gas and is this this is a multi-part question, which I hate doing. Is this
No, let's do it.
income like nice to have income? Is this need to have income? Obviously, I'm not saying you don't want the business to be profitable,
Right.
but are you going to depend upon the income, or is the income, hey, it's nice to have? And then that also ties into the mission of, I want to get this good food out there, because
Yeah.
it comes down to one thing, I think, for a lot of people. If you don't need the money, some people like, I'll just grow a bunch of stuff, have a massive garden. My dad does this and just gives food to the neighbors. So
Right.
where's the differentiation there for you? How does the farm business fall in this mission driven context?
Well, probably my, money scarcity mindset, right? I probably don't need it, right? The word need, with what I've saved in my 401k and my pension and my social security, and I've always had like a second little side hustle. I also have an eBay business. I have an eBay store. I have like 1,000 items in there every day. My son drives to the post office and drops stuff off. So I think I would be all right without it, for sure. So it's not that I need the money, but I don't know if just my capitalistic brain goes to, I'm going to make it, I'm going to sell the excess or what have you. And so I don't know. You know what? I don't even like that word to say. I don't know. So it's just where my daydreams went. To have my next business, I'm busy. I have a lot of energy, and so I don't actually know what's going to happen, Diego. But I think I'd be willing to go to the farmers markets, and my sister and her husband they manage a restaurant, and they're like, how many tomatoes could you give us? I'm like, well, I have like 60 tomato plants. How many tomatoes do you need? So it turns out they need an outrageous amount of tomatoes. So that gives me a scale to work toward. And so that's just where I started thinking, so I don't need it. I just have the drive to give it a go.
Sure. So you're very much at the early stages of inception of the dream, if you will. I want to do
Yeah.
this. It's cool. I'm doing some growing in my backyard. I have the clean food. I've seen all the content on farming. I want to go down this path. When you look at other farmer stories, whether you heard it on my podcast, Reddit, whatever, what are your big worries about starting a farm business?
Well, I did, I have like six or seven of my, I listen to now, right? I'm just getting pouring in information, and everybody seems to have their own separate story. But I think one of the worries would be that it's hard, you know, seems to be hard for a lot of them. And,
In what way?
uh,
In what way? Because that could mean hard, mean I do a
like,
lot of work, I don't make a lot of money. The work
yeah,
is
that's right. They do a lot of work. They don't make a lot of money, or there'll be some disaster, or, a weather issue or what have you. And so the only thing I'm doing right now is hydroponics in a greenhouse in a controlled environment, right? I've got a heater out there because right now it's winter ish, right here in Houston, Texas. I'm sure people would scoff at that. Of course, there's no snow on the ground or anything, but it's, colder than 60 at night and sometimes during the day. So I have my little heaters in there, but I mean, it's basically summer here most of the time. But I lost my train of thought. What was so
the,
we
the,
were
the worries. So one would
Oh,
be
the worries.
it would be
Oh, the
hard.
worries would be, well, I don't know. My glass is half full most of the time. Only that maybe that if it wouldn't be worth it to me, like if I did all this and decided, oh my God, I hate this job, then I could just stop. So it's not really a big worry, right? I feel confident I can pivot if I need to. Or but so far, I like it's from the little seedlings. I'm having a great time. I'm babysitting them, talking to them, and I've really enjoyed it so far. It does seem to be my kind of thing. I have no idea. The disasters I've had so far have been pretty minor. I bought a greenhouse and I bought three different types of hydroponic systems, and I'm really just experimenting. I've written everything down. I got all the spreadsheet, and to see which ones I like best, which one's easy for me, which ones grows best. And then, first I planted everything under the sun. It's like a jungle in there, Jack and the Beanstalk situation. And so I've decided after my sister said we need tomatoes. We use like 100 pounds a day of tomatoes. So I said, well, that's good, right? If I have a customer already, then it's not a huge risk,
Right.
and that's kind of a,
Gives you a way to
but I,
dip your toe in the water, I think,
yes,
for
yeah,
people
yeah,
that are looking to dabble. And I mean this in a good way. I think this is how a lot of things start. I'm curious about something.
yeah,
I like it a lot. How can I make a business out of it? And you start to dabble. Can I sell some here? Who are the easiest people to sell to? People you know. So if you
yeah,
have relatives that you're on good terms with, at least, relatively, no pun intended, easy sell.
yeah,
So
right,
so the beginning part of this journey looks like I'm going to learn how to grow. I'm going to try different things.
yeah,
If I can grow some stuff and sell it to my sister,
hmm,
awesome.
yeah,
And then just expand upon that. And I think that's, to me, hearing that, that's your unfair advantage compared to somebody who's
all
starting
right,
and needs to make a living doing it, is they have a different mindset. And this is why I was interested in talking to you, because I think there's not one starting point for people that want to start a business. It's more almost like a circle. Everybody's starting maybe at a different spot at the circle, trying to get to the center, which is a successful business. And you're just at a different part of that circle. So if you look ahead to, we're early 2025 now, what would
right.
be the goal for 2025?
Okay. So I have like I sit here like I just have a backyard. And most of it is not space where I can, how many greenhouses can I stick out here? I have a big side yard, but the HOA is not going to like that. So I have an appointment next week with a real estate agent, and I've looked at a few places, my somewhere between here, Houston and Austin, which I was planning to retire in that area anyway, kind of get away from the Gulf and the hurricanes. And so just part of I actually always planned to have a working retirement of some kind, like my next thing, whatever the next thing was.
Sure.
After the kid, my youngest, my son is in his freshman year of college. They're going to all be launched, and to just be me and my husband. I don't. We are not going to need this big house. We can downsize, and I'm. My daydream is to have be able to work my little farm or my medium sized farm or whatever size this thing's going to be, and then have some acres to be able to do it. When I've listened to these podcasts, these people seem to be able to do wonders with an acre. So I'm amazed at some of these people and what they can do, on these podcasts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Scale land is not the limit. It's really ingenuity and how much you can do on that land. And I think I- many years ago, I interviewed somebody, Greg Burns, and he had this approach that's similar to what you are talking. They homeschool their kids, lives on a big property in Ohio with his family, and they did this thing, farmsteading. It's not homesteading. Homesteading is more, we'll just grow our own stuff, keep it. It's like, we'll grow our stuff for us, we'll sell some, we'll enjoy the lifestyle and do that. And would you say that's a fair representation of the route you're looking to go down?
Yeah, I'd say at a bare minimum, that is that would be it, right? My husband's interested in it, and he's really open to whatever it is that I want to do next. So I'm very grateful for that. And so then if I can make some extra money in my retirement years, but that's where my brain begins to go, right? If I'm going to dream, I'm dreaming big.
Sure. What
But yeah,
How do you manage yourself or think about this? Because this is one curse of somebody who's starting later in life versus earlier in life. If you've saved a lot, if you've done a good job being financially responsible throughout your life, you have money put aside. And
yeah,
money can flow through hands quickly. And a
hmm,
lot of people who have a lot of money when they start a farm spend a lot of money quickly, often buying stuff they just don't need because they have a lot and they just buy a lot.
yeah, bet that.
Yeah, how do you manage, or what's your thought process going in to say this can't become a black hole, a money pit,
Right.
where, because I could see it easily derail into, I have a pension, I have a 401k, I get Social Security,
Right.
whatever. The farm loses money, who cares? It's just a fun thing, and it's just chomping money. I don't think that's the route you want to go down. So how do you avoid that?
Definitely. No, right? And I've thought of it too, right? Because you will. You're like, hey, that money's sitting there. There's a big lump sum over there. I could buy a giant, four, four commercial greenhouses or whatever. So I would like to start smaller than that, and I think it helps to have a partner saying, whoa, Kelly, whoa, We're, we don't want to do that quite yet. So that helps too, right? And really, it's true between the two of us, I might spend more. I might, right? And he may not. So, I mean, I've been responsible, my whole life. I hope I can keep it together.
Yeah.
So I think so, but I could definitely see where you could, right? You start looking at this stuff, but it might help that, when I am retired and I don't have that big paycheck coming in every couple weeks, that I'll say, well, this is all I have right now. I need to figure out how to do it from here.
Yeah, there's two approaches, I think, to starting a farm that have been that I've heard over the years. One is I'll fund it from the outside. I'll siphon money from the outside to help grow the farm. And that money coming from the outside could be from a loan or a spouse's income or your off farm income, wherever it is. And then there's other people who do, I'll call it like the Tony Barlow approach. It's we put 10 grand into the farm to start it, and
Yep.
we're not putting a dime more in. So if we
Yeah.
want to do something else on the farm, we have to turn that 10 grand into 15 and use that extra five to upgrade, and then just keep recycling the money in and in. When you think about planning, because I think this is real critical early on if you're going to go into a business of what's the budget? How much do you spend? How much am I allowed to re-add if the budget runs out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it can quickly become a hole. And I don't need numbers, but what's your thought process in terms of initial approach to getting into this?
So I consider myself to be, financially fortunate with the job I have. And I get a big bonus every year, and I don't need it, right? I manage on the money I have, and so it was my thought, in the next 2 years for these next two bonuses to be able to spend that, put that in, and then hopefully be able to roll from there. But I definitely do. And if I can keep my base, right, if I can keep my base thought that says, at a bare minimum, Kelly, you make food for yourself and your loved ones and your extended family, and do a good job at that. And if you do more than that, then it's all good. But if that's all you can come up with without going broke, then it was still a good day. So I can keep my hat on that, then I think I can not overspend, but yeah, and not get too excited about it. Because I don't have to start a, a brand new business. I just really like the idea. And I always have had at least one side hustle of some kind, just to, I don't know if it makes me feel more secure that if this job went, I'd have this money at least before I got the next job or what have you. But
There is something I think in that of being able to earn income, even if it's not significant. My wife started a business earlier this year, and it's initially kind of creaked, and then it's done well over the past few months. And just her doing it was not that she was sad or anything, but it was a big mental uplift. It was, I'm working towards something, I'm building something. And even if I made $100 this week, that's money I made with something I created.
yeah,
And
that's
that,
right. I did this work. I did all this work, right?
yeah,
And all the hats that you have to wear to have a side hustle is a lot.
it's almost like the lemonade stand on steroids approach of I'm going to
Right?
start something up. We're
Yeah.
going to sell stuff. We're going to make sure we don't lose the family fortune on this. And
Yeah.
whatever comes in, it's all good. And then we can just grow it and see where it goes. And there's been a lot of people that I've interviewed that are not required to have a farm for a living. So they're starting this either as a second job or later in life, that have started with that approach. They It's almost like they're playing cards. I keep putting
Hmm.
another card in or a slot machine, and eventually the one pull
Yeah.
hits. You start on tomatoes, and maybe we're like, tomatoes aren't my thing, and you try another crop, and then eventually you land on, I don't know, 3 or 4 tries later, it's blackberries or something, making that up, and that
Right. Right.
just becomes the sweet spot. But you can't figure that out until you're in the game, and that's what you're starting to do.
That's what I'm doing. Right. That's what I'm starting to do. Right. I mean, I just know that I would have one, which gives me the courage to, you know, be a little bolder about it. Right. At least to, I was planning on moving anyway. So now we'll just get a few acres in there. I mean, I was thinking, I also I interrupt myself, but I also called, like I looked up the Farm Service Agency and I think it's from the USDA and all that, and there's money for new farmers or women farmers, and both of those would be me. So I've talked to a couple banks, and I don't know, it seems complicated. I'm not sure how to get free money or low interest loan money. So, I'll keep plugging away at that a little bit, but regardless, I could do it without it. So I could do it without it. We could sell this house and get the next place and make the payment and get a, a large greenhouse and get going. Besides this mess I have out here in the backyard.
So say you get the land, it fits into other life plan of we're moving. I don't know, what is that? Is it the Midlands or the Highlands in between Houston and Austin?
So it's called oh my God, how come it's called, yeah, between Austin and Houston, it's the hill country. They call it the hill country. It's slightly hilly, but they call it hill country. Yeah.
So you get that set up. If we circle way back around here, when I asked about things you'd be nervous about, one was it's going to be hard. I think we covered that. What else comes to mind? Is somebody not having done this commercially, heard all the stories?
Right.
What else?
So maybe that some of the logistics of getting the time involved in like getting product to customers, like the drives and the what have you, like that, right? To maybe have employees. Now, I'm not afraid of having employees. I have 19 employees now. I feel confident I could manage employees, but I just what they would do and what they would need to do, or like just all the because right now I'm in my backyard. It's just me and I'm in my backyard and I'm doing this thing. So all the unknowns that would have to learn to make it bigger than this. Um,
How do you feel about going from backyard to farm? That step in terms of the complexity. The nice thing about a backyard, I grow what I want. I harvest it when I want. I'm not on a
right.
schedule. When you go to farm, at the very least, you're on some sort of schedule because you have to be selling routinely, picking
Hmm.
routinely, all that thing stuff. There's the learning curve of growing at scale. Now you don't have to start huge.
Right.
What's the thought of that? And that because that's a unique perspective, I think.
Right. Well, the biggest anxiety that I think I have about that would be to not have enough, right? To have somebody ask me for something or, expect to deliver and not be able to because I didn't do something right or I didn't, right? It's kind of it's not like making widgets. It's growing things. These things are alive and it's a little more complicated and I could, I don't know what I don't know yet and or know how I might be able to mess it up and destroy half the crop or what have you and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I cannot deliver." I would hate that. I hate that when it happens in eBay, right? I'll break something as I'm wrapping it up to ship. It's, a one of a kind, unique thing, and I just broke it. And then I have to tell my customer, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe it. I just broke this item you bought and paid for, and I cannot ship it to you. And I hate that kind of feeling like I have just screwed it up terribly.
Yeah, and for anybody in that position, your position, somebody who wants to start out coming from backyard grower to farmer, I think one thing you can do that's huge is find a closely held customer that's flexible. So if it's a
Yeah,
family member
right?
that you have a relationship with, they're not.
Don't fire me. I'm her big
Yeah,
sister. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So that takes the pressure off. So then the first year can be, let's just grow stuff. We'll sell them what they we can,
yeah.
and we'll learn as much as we can as in the process. Because I think that's really, as I hear your story, the key to year one is just learn, figure it out.
Yeah,
How
right.
do I do this? What's working? What doesn't? Do I like it? There's so many unanswered questions. And if you were going to commit to like a farmer's market in the first year,
Yeah,
a a restaurant, but somebody who was non-flexible, I think it just piles on so much stress of you're on a cadence
right.
where
I
that.
got to show up there with something. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's not enough, then they feel bad about the mistake they made. If it's a
Hmm.
restaurant, and then when you do get dialed in, they're like, well, remember last year when you couldn't deliver? I don't want to go back there.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it could just be we get a farmer's market. We're having that closely held, flexible customer enables you to, hey, this week we have 100 pounds of tomatoes that you need. Next week, sorry, it's only 30. You'll take them all? Great. Next
Right.
week,
Right.
90. Awesome. And then you can really grow into it, find your groove, and in the meantime, dabble in other things, see what people want. I think that sounds to me like a lot of what year one, how I would approach it if I was in your position.
Hmm. Yeah. Just organically see how this goes. Right. I don't have a whole lot to lose, I think. If if, like I said, if nothing else, I can feed us. I have my own homegrown tomatoes, which I love. Sometimes you cut into a tomato from the store, you just throw it away. It was terrible. It tastes like water.
What do you think your unfair advantage is getting into farming? And that could be, so unfair advantage is something unique to you. It could be, hey, I'm tied in with this one community who I know will buy a bunch of stuff. So you kind of have that. You could be
Yeah, I do.
somebody, I've gardened for 30 years, so I haven't gardened at farm scale, but I have immense horticultural knowledge. My family owns a farm and I don't farm, so at least I have those resources. What do you
Right.
think are the advantages you have getting into this?
So besides my own personal, being able to get stuff done and and take action, that's a good one. But besides my sister, I have my family. I have a really big supportive family, and they helped me get the eBay business started. And if it's everybody all hands in, I call and say, "Oh my gosh, I need some help." My son will do anything I ask him to. My husband is here. I think I have a huge support group in my family, and we have a big family. When we all sit at the table and everybody's talking at once, it's like a roar at family holidays. And so we're close. And I would like to think everybody has that, but it's mostly a blessing that I have in that.
I think so,
And
because I don't think everybody does. I
yeah,
think being an entrepreneur can be extremely isolating. I know people listening to this feel incredibly alone and they have a happy family, but their family just isn't into their business. Their spouse is not supportive. They're supportive in a way I would like to think many spouses are, but they're not excited about the business. It's
mm,
just like it's that thing and you're doing it. So if you have people that are supportive and happy to jump in, it helps put that wind in your sails in the rough times, in the hard times when you inevitably as an entrepreneur will just need a pick me up.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I definitely have that. I've got a family full of cheerleaders. That's for sure. And then I also think that I'm not dependent, right? I think that would add way more stress to this. That if I was in my 20s and I've got to sell this to be able to pay my rent or what have you, that that's probably an unfair advantage compared to someone else who hasn't had these, a lifetime of saving money.
for sure.
Yeah.
100%. I love the idea of lifestyle businesses. A lot of the if you go on YouTube and a lot of the more non-farming podcasts, it's very much let's grow these businesses, let's make $100 million and just get crazy rich. It's a lot about that, and that's amazing. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to do that myself, but that's not my goal. My goal has
Yeah.
always been to have a business that works around how I want to live my life. And if that means I
Mhm.
make $50,000 a year, fine. If it means I make $200,000 a year, fine. As long as we're not stressing about bills,
Right.
that's okay. And I've approached our company a lot with that mindset. I'm not trying to make the biggest tool company ever. I'm not trying to introduce 20 new tools a year or take over Johnny's or somebody
Mhm.
like that. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do, go for it. It just comes down to personal context. And if you can find a business that pays for itself, that means it doesn't lose money,
Yeah.
and it brings enough money in, however enough is defined, because everybody's going to be
Sure.
different, and you love doing it, and it aligns with your mission,
Yeah.
whatever that is in life,
Right.
I think that's awesome. I don't think you have to have $100,000 an acre, $200,000 an acre. If you can, great. I mean, if you push there, awesome. But if you do it at the expense of lifestyle, that's a problem. So I like what I'm hearing in your story of this really fits where I want to go with life.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that intersection is beautiful when you can make it work.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm actually excited about it. And so, right, I just want the simple things for a happy life and a long one and a healthy one, and to share it with my family and to have them come and enjoy the food and the outdoors and the time together. That's what I'd like.
It's just a hypothetical. If you had half an acre and let's say it was all plantable
Yeah.
right now, well, how would you approach it given your experience level, your time availability, literally right now, tomorrow, half acre available, you can farm it. Let's say there's water on it.
Yeah.
There's even beds made. How would you approach that with your experience, with the money you have, with the time you have available now? Not when you're retired, but now.
Now, right. So I I don't know anything about planting in the ground. I don't plant anything in the ground. It's all hydroponics in there. And
Is that what you
so,
would do? Would you do hydroponics then in the future?
yeah, that's my plan because that's
Okay,
the
so
only thing
say
I've learned.
fine, say you had a bunch of land, a half acre, and you could then build that. I'll audible this. You have to have a half acre. You could
Uh-huh.
hydroponic that out as much as you want.
Yeah.
What would you do now, given your time, resources, skills?
Well, I've put some, back in the napkin things on here, and I think I could do a whole lot with a 500 square foot greenhouse. Honestly, I think I could. I could, because it's all on shelves. Like I've got 4 layers, and I've got like 64 plants per these shelves, and I can have a lot of plants in a small space. And I wander around there. Right now, it's so tight. My husband doesn't even go in there. He has to move sideways, but I maneuver around in there, and I've got it all in there. But no, I would do it. I plan on it as soon as I get, you know a spot big enough for a larger greenhouse to go ahead and buy that and then start making as many plants as I can or want to start with in there. And so a half an acre is actually a lot. So the other thing that I would have on more acres that I have in my mind that I'm not sure I'm ready for is to, because I listen to those homestead things too, but I don't know anything about animals. We've got some cats around here at that house. Like that would be more, my husband's thing that he would like to do. And so, to have a homestead and have, the chickens and what have you. So I think eventually we'd like to do the whole thing, but I'd like to just start for me to start with the vegetables, start with the growing things, start with the greenhouse and the hydroponics that I have been studying and know how to do. And so far, every system I bought, all three of them, are just growing crazy. They all work. So then I was just figuring out which one that I think is easiest. And so I would do it right now. I could do it right now if I could put it in my side yard without the HOA being mad at me.
What's your biggest apprehension going into this? I think if anybody says they're not nervous about anything, I think they're lying.
Probably time, right? Because I work full time. I mean, I work remotely 2 or 3 days a week, but still, it's time. It takes me an hour to get downtown, an hour to get back. And so on those days, I don't do a thing in that greenhouse, not one thing. And I think the bigger it is, the more time it's going to take me. And so I'm afraid that if I go too big too soon, I'm going to be tired or worn out or unable to keep up, and I'll mess it up. So I have to go slow. I have to go slower. I have to, right, which is hard, but
Oh, I think that's probably, you're right. The hardest thing, if you're enthusiastic about life, if you're entrepreneurial, it's a lot of times it's pedal to the metal. That's
right.
like the thought process, at least in my head, a lot of times. And the hardest thing to do is to back off
Yeah. It's
and
to wrap
say,
down. Yeah.
"You slow
It's
down."
already, we're going to be overrun right now with what I've put in here. I've got quite a few things going. I mean, we can't eat it all, but
So it's a year of learning. It's a year of building a foundation, get some infrastructure in place, learn, get some sales going, figure stuff out, right?
yeah. Yeah. I'm scared of the farmer's market too, because a lot of the times I'll hear them like how many hours they work, like all Saturday or all Sunday at that. And so I don't know that I going to have the time and energy to do that as I'm getting my new place and my new stuff built out. But
If
just
I
to
was
start,
you, hearing your story, I wouldn't even think about it this year.
yeah,
Like, what's the gain? That's how I would say it. So you sell a little bit more. So you start building a customer base. I don't think that's the highest priority. Hearing your story, I think this is unsolicited advice, but
no, I'll take it. Yeah,
I think the key for you is dial in your growing, get production going consistently so you can do it over and over and over, grow throughout a season. Because even in Houston, you're going to have some variability, probably really hot, humid in the summers. That's going to be
yeah,
way different than growing in the April and September when it's still warm, but maybe not as humid. I learn all the nuances of equipment. Inevitably, something's going to break in there.
right.
Get some funnel sales off to your sister, which gets you learning all about that. Start
Yeah,
tracking costs. How much is this costing me to grow all this and sell it? What tomato varieties are best? Because there's probably a lot of that tinkering to go on given that coastal climate.
sure.
That's why for me, yeah, I just don't see a gain in a farmer's market other than saying you did it and you're going to learn stuff. But it's just another thing to add hours, add stress. And I think you're better just using those hours on the farm to keep growing better because you don't
Hmm.
need the money.
That's right. Yeah.
The most important thing you can get this year is knowledge.
Education. Yeah.
Yeah, systems
Yeah.
and a solid bulletproof foundation you can build on in the future. Because I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of farmers who need money now misstep is they have to rush to chase income,
Yeah.
which means they often have to quickly move past steps that they otherwise wouldn't or bypass things that they otherwise wouldn't. You don't have that constraint.
Yeah. I don't have that kind of pressure, which is really nice. Really
Yeah,
nice.
so it's like get this thing set up right. And then as you grow, it's like, oh, this isn't perfect. Let's keep dialing this in. Not that everything has to be 100% perfect, but figuring all that out. And then if you grow tomatoes, you're probably somebody who buys tomatoes wants something else. So it's like, what else can we grow? And all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I think
Great.
it can be a big year of building out all that stuff.
Yes. I am really looking forward to it. I really am.
Right on. Well, I look forward to following your journey and best of luck with it.